Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mind Your Business Show. I am your host, Milt Walker, joined today by none other than Tony Calloway, the Private Money Godfather. How are you today, sir?
Maestro, another beautiful Saturday morning here
Yes.
in Columbus, Georgia, the west coast of Georgia. You know, we say the west coast is the best coast. Those of you Georgia doesn't have a west coast. There's a river that separates us in Alabama here in Columbus. But hey, I'm just having fun, and it's a beautiful day to have fun. And I want to thank you all for joining us here for the Mind Your Business show, making it an important part of your Saturday and an important part of your life. And we have a spectacular show today, and we'll introduce our guests. But as I'm always so courteous and thankful to have the maestro here to get us on the air for the Mind Your Business show, I got to check in on my brother and ask him, how's life been treating you?
Life's been good. Life's been very interesting lately, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the journey, and I'm growing so much, and I'm just so grateful for all the support that I receive, and definitely got to give you a shout out, Tony, for that as well. It's great to be a part of a team of some great people, and I'm just really grateful. So yeah.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you. You know, one thing about the maestro, he's always so zen. You know, he's so centered, all the time. And I'm not always that way, but I just admire not only his technical ability, but his personality as well. And so let's get down to it today. We have with us now, for those of you who saw the promotion, you'll notice that our guest is not Lisa. uh, please keep Lisa and family in prayer because she had an urgent family emergency, but she was kind enough to bring in a competent partner of hers. And so we have with us this morning Jim R. So Jim, how are you doing today?
Oh, it's a pleasure to meet both of you and be on your show. I know I'm not as good looking or as pretty as Lisa, but I'm here and, and enjoying it and happy to be up and going with y'all. So,
Awesome,
We
awesome.
appreciate it.
Well, Jim, and the nature of the business that we're in is about relationships. So I'm having fun with this cloak and dagger thing. But Jim is one of the funding partners for the Private Money Syndicate. He and Lisa are a party who provide capital to support deals. So obviously, I have to protect their identity. So we're going to say that Jim is coming to us live from an undisclosed location somewhere over the Mediterranean. All right. So, and,
I
and
have a pair of shorts on right underneath this.
Right, right, right.
you probably heard some of these war correspondents they're doing coverage and stuff like that out of some of those naval vessels. You know, they use that phrase in military parlance, I guess. But Jim is one of our I call him Lisa are one of the big deal capital partners who work with the Private Money Syndicate. So from the standpoint of what we want to do for you today. Now, for those of you who've never thought about or had a reason to want to borrow 4, 5, 50, 100, $200 million, this might whet your appetite. And for those of you who see this either on Facebook Live or as we have them posted on YouTube, we've got capital. You know, we not only have the capital, but the flexibility that can help support you accomplishing your capitalization needs or what we want to articulate in this episode today. So I'm going to let Jim R. Just introduce himself a little bit on a personal level and maybe how you got into this realm, and then we'll kind of get into the funding side of discussions.
Thank you. Thank you. Essentially, I've been in the business for, oh, gosh, I can't believe it's been 30 years. And started out like a lot of people did. I had a finance degree and went right into real estate lending. And it was exposed real quickly to asset-based lending, which there is a little bit of difference between real estate and asset-based. One has a real estate security piece of it. The other one, asset-based lending, kind of encompasses everything. So it was really exciting for me as coming right out of college to be exposed to that. We did factoring, which is, gets into lending against receivables, which is essentially if you get a contract and you're going to deliver products and you don't have the money to do the manufacturing piece, then you got to go in and borrow against that to be able to buy your raw goods, to be able to factor. So it was really exciting. It was different than just an apartment building where the guy's got 20% down and you were going to come in and just do an 80% loan, and we look at the income approach. So I really got this broad spectrum, and I also got into movies at the same time. at a very young age, and it's just kind of carried through my life, and it's kept it really, really interesting. So I did that, and then later on, in getting with the Private Money Syndicate, I was really lucky to have the financial backing and with the investment capital, and just did loans all over the United States, and that's allowed me to meet wonderful people like these two on the guest chair that have me today, and it's been fun. It's been a really exciting long ride. So, and it feels like it's after COVID and all the pent up demand, we're just running like the wind right now and just enjoying all these new transactions, and everything's so different. Like we have stuff from hydroponics, which is farming. So in financing that, we have stuff, obviously, the apartment buildings seem to be the boring part of it, but you know what? That's also the easiest for us to do 9 times out of 10. And, we're also into, done a ton of farm loans, anywhere from, we'll look at cannabis. We will look at, but I like the cherry trees, the walnuts, even getting into corn, any type of agriculture stuff. We also love that too. Infrastructure deals, we have data deals. So if you have a data center that you're trying to run fiber optics, we go fiber optics transaction. And the neat thing about
Nice.
us in general is that anything that creates jobs. So you may have an opportunity and a structure. If you're creating X amount of jobs, that also brings value from what our mission is in putting this and deploying our capital, is that we want to be able to, to be a part of that and help create those jobs and sustainable. And in an odd way, it actually helps us with our investors. And there are certain things that when we work with them, that they want that criteria as well. So the big thing is you may have an opportunity, but you may not know whether it's financeable or not. And that's where you've got the Godfather here, who's just an amazing person, and he can actually help you decide what you want to do. And so it's just, we like to see all opportunities, and it isn't so much that everything fits in one box. And that's the neat thing, is that we have the creativeness to try and get your opportunity from point A to point Z, and help you shape that and make it happen. And that's the fun thing about what I get to do, is I get to make things happen and dreams happen. And we like to meet everybody and see everybody. And it's fun. I mean, I've had an airplane for a long time, and we used to fund transactions in 5 days, pre-COVID, of course. But, there's nothing like, meeting people and having them explain their journey and their dream and being able to make that happen. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
love
yeah.
it.
Well, I can tell, and I heard you say you have a plane. I guess
I
once upon a
did.
time I had my private pilot's license, and and it's interesting. And I'll make this real brief. Flying a single engine light aircraft,
Yep.
I tell people, you don't realize there's no shade above the clouds.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And it wasn't Top Gun, so I didn't have the
So it wasn't
financial
time.
resources to just do it as a hobby. So I guess I say been there, done that, but certainly that is very cool, man. And hey, I'm delighted that you're able to come share, as you just kind of touched on. It's not even the tip of the iceberg, some of the things we're going to go over today. But I saw the maestro like salivating when you start saying all this technology funding and
Oh
fiber.
man.
And that's your domain, isn't it, man? That's
Hey, it is, and it's interesting that he brought that up, because it's something that a lot of people need to start considering, especially coming through us as well, and some of the things that we talked about on some of our last shows about how we can help you with that, with using, like, my services to actually help them to plan and formulate and strategize on some of those things. And that's interesting because that's one of the plans, using the infrastructure funding that's coming from the government, some of those programs, that lending and lending from our partners to help you, help build out this country, because in a lot of places, especially in the South, we're kind of behind the curve on the technology side. So there's a lot of opportunity. That's all that means. It just means there's a lot of opportunity. So yes, definitely, that's an interesting concept.
let
Yeah,
me ask
that's the neat thing. Go ahead.
you, Maestro. Well, you have the mic, so to speak. How about letting us know who we have tuned in this morning, and acknowledgments and shout outs. I want to say thanks to all of you who have joined us right here at the beginning. You need to call and text your friends because they don't want to miss this one. But Maestro, who do we have out there viewing right now?
So far, we just got Danita Lloyd joining us saying good morning. I'm ready to mind my business with the Private Money Syndicate. And Horace Solomon just joined in, says good morning. And Edward Winton just joined in and said good morning as well. So we got people waking up and jumping in. So on this beautiful Saturday. Yep.
I want to say thanks to Danita. She and I were on a panel that she actually co-hosted with the Private Money Syndicate and Farmers Insurance on Thursday evening here in Columbus at the beautiful National Infantry Museum. Jim, the home of the infantry, Fort Benning, Georgia, is right here
Oh,
adjacent.
wow.
And so they have an incredible museum there. And we had an event where we're talking about private money funding for real estate transactions. So Danita, thanks for that. You're a great host, and you're just awesome. And Horace Solomon from my little country hometown, Roberta, Georgia. Thanks for tuning in. And then our partner with Operating in the Black, Daniel Winton, awesome operation that does a lot of our business funding. So thank you, Daniel, for tuning in. And for those of you who are watching who hadn't logged into the chat, we really appreciate knowing that you're out there. So just say hi to us. But we're going to keep going, and we'll come back and see who else has joined us. And I will say, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. Because let your imagination run wild. One of the things that Jim said is they fund dreams. Our motto here at the Private Money Syndicate is we power dreams with private money. So even if it might seem far-fetched, just knowing that you have the capital, we bring all the other resources to you to help make those dreams come true. So like, follow, and share us on Facebook, and make sure you go to the Private Money Godfather channel on YouTube and subscribe, okay? All right, Jim, back to you. Now, before the show, we talked about all kind of stuff that you guys are doing. And I'll just let you, pick a story of a deal that you and Lisa have been able to bring capital to, and I just want people to hear some of the exciting things that we can help them with. So I'll give you free reign, man. Go ahead, talk to us.
One of the fun things that we did, we stepped in. It's an interesting time, with the banking system and what's going on, and how the private money, how we've been able to step up and kind of fill voids with the bank. And one of them is that senior care facilities. So we've got several groups, which I love the space. It's probably going to be one of the most profitable spaces for the unforeseeable future, just because of the age of the population and where it's going. But in this particular instance, the banks are not stepping up, and they're not doing the construction piece of it. But we have one that's already an existing facility that's already built. It's actually cash flowing. And then secondly, there's more that on the same pieces, they're expanding. So one of the transactions that we're doing is we're able to provide money to pay off the existing debt, and then also provide money for them to build out the next facility. And then we're also looking at two of the other sites to be able to provide that type of financing as well, to do ground up construction. Mm-hmm. And again, the program that we're using on that one is we're mitigating risk by putting an insurance policy on it, and guaranteeing our investors, an 80% coverage of their investment. So it allows us to take a little bit more exposure and, go almost 95% LTV, so to speak, off of the basic value. But everything has to make sense. We do run, what we call debt ratios. So there has to be that income that's going to come in there and obviously cover the payments to make, the deal work. So that's one transaction. Another one is we have one on the West Coast in California, and it's a farming. It's greenhouses. They actually deliver flowers at Trader Joe's and a lot of your hardware stores where you go buy your stuff. And then they also do herbs, and that one's kind of fun because we deal with futures. We look at what their projected cash flows are going to be. And obviously you have the exposure to the crops, whether it's going to be successful, whether they're, so you have all these mitigating issues that you have to look at to do it. And that's actually a lot of fun one, because it's a little bit different than the senior care, but you're just dealing with something that's a perishable product. So it's kind of fun looking at that. And then the asset is they have lease property. So even though you're going, well, I don't own my property. That doesn't matter. We can still come in, because your business generates income or has that potential of generating income. We can still come in and make you a loan, because on asset-based lending, we're looking at your cash flow and the people who run the business and what their abilities are and their ability to, execute what they're trying to do.
Right.
And you've got a history of executing, you've got a history of doing this, then we're going to be a little more aggressive on the financing. If you don't, and it's a startup, then we'll be less, but then we have things that we can mitigate. And as the Godfather here will tell you, I mean, there's more than one way to get you from point A to point B. So,
Yeah.
there's lots of different ways to do things. Manufacturing. The fun one that I'm having a good time that we've financed in the past is data centers. Data centers are really cool. And again, that's a great example of most data centers do not own their real estate. So they'll do, a 20-year or a 30-year lease. And one of the things to keep in mind is you may have a 5-year lease, but we can help you negotiate a longer period to get you financing for expansion or, however you want to develop your business plan.
Hmm.
So,
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions in that. Now, when it comes to the size of the transactions that you're looking at, I know most of our viewers are either small business people or oftentimes they're single family real estate investors. As I was telling you, Lisa and I have a multi-million-dollar deal that we're working on. And one of my first deals was a $10 million air park development. I didn't know what an air park was, and I got the guys. I got to tell the story. So the co-broker that sent the deal to me, I read the business plan, and because he was telling me, he was saying this guy wants to build an airstrip in the middle of nowhere in Winslow, Arizona. He owned 300 acres of land, and he wanted to be able to build a subdivision where people could fly their planes in and taxi and park their small private planes like you have, Jim, in your driveway. And I'm like, okay, this sounds crazy, but okay, I got the business plan. The business plan says there are 500 of these things in the United States. 50 are already in Arizona and
yeah.
Florida. And I'm like, what? So anyway, it was a $10 million financing, and we put 6 million of the funding in to create the airstrip, put in the air services facilities, and do 6 spec homes and do the infrastructure development for the subdivision. Then he was going to sell off the lots to developers. But now that's an example of some of this funding. But now my question, having kind of gone off into that story, is what are some of the minimum deal size, what type of ratios? I know one of the programs is 20% to 80% funding. Talk to us about some of that so that, this kind of signals people, hey, I got this, or I can get this, or we can pull together a syndication to form the basis for the assets we need to come into a deal. So if you would, please.
Most of our transactions right now, I mean, they range anywhere. I mean, we don't have many down around the million, but obviously there's stuff that we could do down there, 500,000 and up. But most of what we're dealing with right now seems to be between 10 and 50 million. And it just because that's just what's been coming in lately. And there's in as you all know, in lending, you get these periods of time. That doesn't mean we'll do less or more. It's just that seems to be what's going on right now. Is there's a lot of pent up demand, between that 10 and $50 million range. And so that seems to be what we're doing most of, but the range obviously is a lot lower and a lot higher. And a lot of the transactions right now seem to be, there's different components of it, where we're doing, 10%, 90% financing. We do have some 5%, equity with 95% financing, but they all have to make sense. And the ratios have to make sense. And when I mean by the ratios, excuse me, I mean like the debt, what we call debt service coverage ratio.
Right.
And essentially what that is that we're going to look at your NOI, which is your net operating income. And you may not have an active business, so we'll look at your pro forma, which is what your projections are. But on a debt service coverage ratio, we want to see what we call 1.25% or greater. Okay. And what that means is basically you're going to have, say it's $1, okay, you want to have the income, net income, which is after all your expenses and everything, excluding depreciation and taxes, of course, or existing mortgages, you have those in place. Then it would take a $1.25, okay, would be your net income. So there's that 25%, and a really simple way of explaining that coverage, which means you've got 25% more income than your actual monthly payment. And that's what we like to see. Now, if it's on a pro forma, we'll look at it. We want to see that you're going to be stabilized in a period of time to where we don't bury you in the property with debt, meaning that we're going to make a loan if we think you're going to fail. And that's where our underwriting comes in. And the Godfather and his team are brilliant at that. So that's why we like working with them, because they understand how to put all that together and guide you through that. Because if you're successful, we're successful. And one of the things that we don't like doing is having to go chase money and all of that. It's kind of like a tractor. If you can't take that tractor and go out there and make money with it, then it's not a good fit. And that's where we can help you evaluate that. And money is the same thing. You have to be able to take our money like that tractor and go make money out with it. Because if you can't, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's a very good way to describe that, because for all the viewers, if when you go to privatemoneysyndicate.com, you see our advisors list and all the parties who work with us. And there are several deals that we've done where we had a CPA do the projections to help them to find flaws in their plan before we actually go out and they get turned down, because the folks who are on Jim's side of the equation, they do their X-ray, EKG, they do your, blood urine. They check it out thoroughly before they put capital at risk. But sometimes the two things I talk about is, one is the plan, but one of the things that Jim mentioned kind of in passing, but is really important is, well, who are the actors? Not only the what, but the who. People have experience and they have history, background. And one of the great things about working in this space is when you create your entity, you bring in people as parties, partners, investors, whoever, who can be part of that for that. Even if you don't have all of that, you can bring in relationships who are, principal to the deal, who can advise and can bolster that particular aspect of your underwriting, so that it helps improve the probability of you being successful, because that's what the entire venture is about anyway.
Yeah, and that's, it's the big thing too that's different. I mean, that I like between real estate and asset-based lending. Obviously you have a more brick and mortar. Asset-based lending kind of encompasses the whole thing, but when you get away from that brick and mortar, it's really about the people. We're back on looking at them and their ability to execute, and their team to be able to make sure that they can get the job done, essentially. So, and that's the big thing between commercial and, say, for example, your home. So asset-based lending is almost like to me at times, like a homeowner occupied loan, meaning someone who's buying a home and they're living in it. To whereas commercial, that's a lot different, because the sponsor, which would be the owner, isn't necessarily coming under their microscope so much, unlike an apartment building or a strip mall or movie theater, whatever we're financing. We're going to look at that asset. Okay, we're going to look at the performance of that apartment building, and can that market support, the rents and making us payment. And this is where I'm driving to, is that on a home, we're looking at the individual and their ability to make money to be able to pay us back. So there's a big differentiation, separation. But where it ties back together on asset-based lending is, it's almost like that homeowner occupied, which is where you're going with the Godfather, I believe. And that is that, say you're farming or you're on a leased property, we're going to look at your abilities, and we're going to look at you, and we want to have that same faith in you and your abilities to execute your plan. And that's where you guys do an amazing job. I have to compliment both of you today of being able to evaluate people and help people get, put their plans together and be able to be successful.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to turn it back to the maestro for a second, see if we've had any other people join us since our last pause for the cause, and give any shout outs.
Yeah, so we did have a lot of people kind of chime in afterwards. Tiffany Lanice is joining us. She says good morning, and she says Superman.
Little Oprah. That's
Yeah, she also said tell him little Oprah said hi. Monica Owens is joining us. She says good morning. Kendez Parker is joining us as well. He says hi guys. And Vic Calloway, family is joining us, says good morning. Really enjoying the conversation and think big. And that's I think that's the theme of today's show, is to think bigger than than what you might think is possible when it comes to funding your dreams. So yeah, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thanks. I want to say, hey, for those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, if you go on my story, I do my Saturday morning dream car show. That beautiful yellow Corvette that you see is the very first one. I have two younger brothers. I can't call him my little brother. He's taller than I am. Brother Vic. So, get the chance to show up his ride this morning to the world. But hey, thanks for joining in, you and everybody else. And so we have Jim R. With us, who's one of our funding partners, and we're talking about all the great things that he and Lisa, who was going to be our guest, but she had a family emergency. So Jim, I appreciate you standing in the breach to bring this great information to our viewing audience. And so again, to everybody, please like, follow, and share the Mind Your Business show. It's a show that helps you to grow. And go to YouTube to the Private Money Godfather channel and please subscribe. I mean, we got to get those subscribers up, but certainly we're gonna be here to bring capital to power your dreams. And if you need to get your technology right, there's nobody better than Silver Lining Consulting, and the maestro is the lead of that. And his background, acumen, his ability is going to help you to not only build your website, but he'll help you build your technology infrastructure. I bet this brother can even build a data center. Ain't you, maestro?
Well,
And
I was gonna say something about that. I was gonna say, it's interesting because when I was living in California, one of the events I went to several Google events, but one of the events was when they actually it was an invite only event, and they invited me out to the unveiling of their new data center that was out in LA. They built one in LA, and I got a chance to kind of go in and hear about that and all of the things that that it does for that. So yes, I mean it's in today's day and age, the technology scene, data centers are you have to have them. If you're going to have a business that's built on information intelligence, then you got to have a data center, because you got to have the ability to take the insights from that information and turn it into something that's going to help you be sustainable, or make more money, and that's where information is king these days. So that's what it is. That's how you get it.
And I would say to the audience, if any of you have questions, please, put those in the chat and, ask Jim. I'm sure he'll be able to give us some insight. So Jim, we're going to come back to you. And now before the show, we were talking about films and professional, basketball teams and all kind of stuff. I mean, the breadth of what it is that you guys can fund. In fact, I think it was a little bit over a month ago, one of our guests was actually a movie producer. He actually had a movie that was in theaters at the time. My brother's keeper, Ty Mann, a great gentleman out of Columbus, Georgia. He was filming another movie out in Oklahoma at the time. But you guys do film financing too, right? Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we love the entertainment space. I've been lucky enough to be a part of it for, almost 30 years. Well, in and out of it, and oddly enough, I've produced and producing films at this moment as well. I just love it. I love it when the cameras are rolling, to be honest with you. Post is a little brutal, but financing, yeah, we love the opportunity. Movies are like building a building. And in the income approach in the industry, at least for how our approach is, and the neat thing about it is that it's not just one approach that works. And what I mean by that is our model, from the financing piece, we have different ways of doing it. And one of them is kind of like speccing a home. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but where you go in and you have your talent, you have your cast, you put that together, you basically make the movie without pre-sales, okay? And you basically put it out there hoping that people will come and do it. You got a good marketing plan and get it out there. The other way to do it would be to hedge your exposure. So, and the financing is going to be dealt differently. So the more conservative way that we like to see things done is that you have a cast, and how movies are looked at and perceived is that cast. What's the value of that cast? What's their global exposure? And then that ties into basically what's the subject matter of that movie. Is it a drama? Is it an action? How's that going to translate on a global, or is it just going to be domestic? So the financing component will be derived on which path you're going. So for example, we have a 20/80 program that you got to come in with 20%, and then we'll come in and provide the 80% debt. Okay. And that is typically, if you're speccing, there's going to be more exposure. So we're going to want to see that you have more equity into the film, and then we're going to try and mitigate it with that expense. Now, where it gets more aggressive is if you have a pre-sales, which was going to cover some of our exposure, you're going to have tax credits, okay, and that's going to reduce our exposure. Then we have financing that say is just 10% equity, okay, because our risk is smaller, and then we'll come in with 90%. Now, that's on the debt side. The same thing goes, we can also bring equity on movies. So say you come in with the 20% with pre-sales, we have the opportunity at times to come in with 80% equity. And what's the difference? The difference is, one is obviously debt. You're going to have to make payments on that debt once the movie's going. They're going to securitize the IP. And if you screw up, they're going to take the IP from you. And IP is intellectual property, which is actually the content of, the script. When you make the movie, it's the actual film itself. Okay. Now, coming back out of that, if you do equity, okay, they're basically your partners. Okay. You still have to perform and do things, but you both own it together. So one can't typically take it from the other unless there's fraud, obviously. But so those are kind of the two different ways of going at the movies. And it's risk adverse, of course. But the neat thing is today, even if you're speccing a movie or have an idea, the opportunity to get it financed is more so today than it has been in history. And here's a neat thing that a lot of us take for granted in the United States. I mean, doing movies, and I've been blessed to do them all over and work with different countries, is the United States has more private capital available for movies and has always had that, as opposed to other countries, which is why we have the freedom to develop content that expresses on every level. And what I've learned, and in my opinion, which is kind of exciting about us, is, for example, if you're doing a movie in Australia, 90% of the content coming out of Australia is government participated funding, which a lot of people don't know. If you're doing a movie out of different parts of, say, Asia, same thing. There's government participation, which you go, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, the really interesting is they're going to have to approve your content, and they're going to approve the message. Whereas the thing that we're so blessed here that I think we take for granted is that we get to express what we want to because of the availability of capital. And that's exciting to me. And the same thing with Europe. If you're doing a French movie, most of those are all financed. There's going to be a government interaction, and they're going to have that influence on the message of the movie and how it's done and when it's done. So that's the exciting thing here, is that we're able to help out people deliver their own message and their own content with freedom. And that's something that isn't really universally once you leave the United States. It's very, very, matter of fact, I don't know too many situations outside of the United States to where there isn't that influence because capital has influence.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, let me ask, are there any other areas that we're able to finance in the entertainment space and beyond the movies?
Yeah, TV shows are hot. I mean, let's face it, you got Amazon, Netflix, Hulu's coming on strong, Apple's going crazy right now. The big thing is obviously binge TV watching. And so, TV shows are just a really hot topic. I'm in the process of developing one right now that I'm excited about. But that is something too we will highly consider. You bet. The track record and the proven stuff is really something that is new, but the industry is really involved. As I like to call it, the analog dollar to the digital penny. And a lot of us got crushed. And the reason I use that term is being somebody who's been making movies in 2007, I know the economy also crashed, but the whole film and industry also had a big adverse reaction because you had your Hollywood videos and all of your, hard brick and mortar companies where you go rent your video. Well, I used to make $1.25. Okay. Then Netflix comes into the deal. And my deal with Netflix was a penny rental. It was horrible. I was getting literally they were spending more money on postage than my actual check. It was like, wow. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I was getting checks for like 6 cents, 8 cents. And what it was is that was the transition of the industry going to that digital process. Right. And the loss of, matter of fact, I was just moving some stuff. Sony sent me, I think, like, I don't know, 2,000 copies of my movies from the inventory. I still had them out as gifts, by the way, which is horrible. I don't know what to do with them. But anyway, it's that.
I'll pay the postage on it, Jim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, actually, it's true. I think recycle if we can. But um, but that's the
So
neat thing
recycle.
about about today is that we've actually, and why I'm getting back into it and being somebody who's attended Sundance for the last 15 years, is that we actually have a distribution model that has now proven itself worthy to go make movies, and for us to come in and back, you all in bringing in movies and being able to finance it, because now that we have live streaming and they're actually paying for content, and it's allowing the independent group to come back into it, because I really believe from 2008 to 2014 your independent guys just got crushed, and I was one of them too, because you go from, that's why I call it the analog dollar, to the digital penny. I mean, we just couldn't make any money. But that's changed today, and that's the exciting thing, is that we do have now outlets, and TV shows, I think for the very first time in my opinion, um, are going to be more valuable than movies. They just are.
Oh, wow. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, well, now let me ask the maestro. We have any questions before we go on to another area?
No questions yet, but we did have somebody else come in. Jonathan Dolman came in and he just said, "Wow." And
Oh,
we were talking about the data centers and everything, and just how, that's something that, that we could fund, those types of projects, so yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's it.
I've been lucky enough to help out, I think, 4 or 5 data centers. And one was a really good friend. I actually helped him start his business, and he ended up getting school contracts and everything else. And here's the
Right.
thing: is data centers are continuing to grow,
Oh yeah.
and we're doing a fiber deal right now, and that's the in ground. It's
Right.
not in the United States. It's actually outside of the United States. It's actually in
Mm.
Europe. And what they did is they cut a deal with the government, and they're actually digging up a line along the freeway system to connect the data centers to allow the volume to increase in the data centers. But it's also what people think is, and I forget too, that here we have all of this data, right? The cloud and everything else going. We
Right.
just think it's
Right.
moving around the air. But at the end of the day, it still has to move with real fiber in the
Exactly,
ground.
exactly.
And that's that
It
infrastructure.
creates other jobs, like you said.
Yeah,
It's
dude,
and
it's amazing.
it's something that people don't take into consideration, because even when you think about, the mail room, I always tell people this, like, you got to have somebody who's going to be delivering the mail, sorting the mail. You got people who are going to be the receptionists. You got people who are going to be the janitors. You got people who are going to be the technicians, the electricians, the people who are building the buildings. You're creating so many different jobs just from this one idea. Like, it's not something that's just, it should be taken for granted or lightly. It is a big undertaking. So definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the infrastructure, it's being pressed right now. It needs to expand, and that's a big concept that you're like, well, how does that happen? Like, how do I get, here we are all talking on the streaming line. Like, what is this going off of? It's just not something in the air. I mean, we do have satellites, we do all these things, but at the end of the day, I just learned, I was just in Europe, and I just learned that they've run 2 more cables from New York, over to Europe, and literally, and I've actually
Undersea.
seen this, yeah, where they've got the big giant
Hmm.
rolls, right? And
Hmm.
on this big giant, it looks like a tanker essentially, and it literally it spins and drops the cable down along the bottom of the ocean. And I don't know how many they are right now, but I know there's at least 5 or 6
Well, just
that
think
go
about the
from the
two, the
west
big
across.
names. You got Google, you got Amazon, you got Microsoft. They all have, these data centers all over the world. At least, you
Yeah.
know, at least that, So, yeah. So,
Wow.
But you still need that brick and mortar, so to speak,
right,
that hard fiber line
right.
in the ocean, on the ocean floor, going all the way
Hmm.
across.
It was an interesting experiment that when in the same event, because again it was a data center, so they were giving you all of the elements of the data center, and so that was one of they had a little attraction set up where you would take a picture of yourself, right, and then it would send it through their fiber, because Google's entire network is fiber, and so as it went around the world through all of their data centers and came back to the new data center
Oh,
in
wow.
LA, it gave you the time of how long it took for that to happen, which was a very interesting thing. It was so amazing. I learned a lot during that experience. But yeah, definitely you're right. And it had a map that showed you where the undersea cables were and everything. So yeah.
So
Wow.
how long did it take? I'm curious.
It,
Yeah,
it,
me
it
too.
don't
That's my next
right.
question.
It took about 5 seconds. It took about 5 seconds to go through all of the data centers and come
That's
back.
amazing.
But
That's
that's
amazing.
all over the world, right? Exactly. And this is, so yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was like,
Like,
wow.
so is that like the speed of light or?
You're right. It is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
With a couple of
hmm
stops for gas, I guess. I don't know.
Right, right. And of
Yeah.
course, it has to, authenticate and all. It's some other technical stuff that's going on too that kind of slows it down a little bit. But
That's
yeah.
cool.
hmm
Well, I did want to make the comment that actually, I think in 3 of the episodes of the Fast and the Furious, some of that was filmed actually in Columbus, Georgia, on this bridge we have between Columbus and Phoenix City, Alabama, and then a number of war movies are filmed at Fort Benning.
Yeah,
Georgia has
Bruce Willis.
credits,
hmm
yeah, a lot of tax credits for film production and everything. So hey, Kim, would love to invite you to come do one of your shows, one of your movies here in Georgia, and all that good stuff. I want to change the direction of the conversation. Let's talk about startups because a lot of the clients that we work with are startups, and we were talking about dreaming and big thinking. Thanks, Vic, for throwing that in the mix. What are some of the funding strategies that you guys or you specifically are familiar with that you've been able to fund, and this will give some insight to some of our viewers now and then in the later viewings on YouTube.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of some of the startups that I've done in the past. I haven't done any recently, and I just think it's because of COVID and where we're at. But what I have seen a lot of it is people taking existing ideas. There's a in a you know and applying that to an existing product. For example, ammunitions.
Mm,
I've seen a huge demand for it. I was shocked about it. And what I've seen is people taking a very old idea and putting a new twist on it to improve it. It's just a widget in, widget out. And what we've seen is people taking an idea that they've been experienced over a part that want to make it better, which we are basically the nation that does amazing things and creating things and making it better.
Innovation. Yeah.
And so what I've seen recently is startups that are taking an existing product and adding what they feel will be a better space, doing their market research, and realizing that this product has a demand. And so we talk about pro formas, we talk about some a proof of concept, we talk about how that integrates in the market and the audience. A lot of times, startups, they'll have a great idea, but you don't want to take that 100% risk and dive into the pool without knowing and understanding your audience. So that's what's great about the Godfather is he's going to help you answer the questions that you need to define that leap of faith, so to speak. And with that is understanding your audience for your product. Who's going to buy your product and why are they going to buy your product? Is there demand for that product? And then also, okay, what is the economics of it? Are you pricing that product correctly? Is it competitive in the market? Or maybe you're coming up with a totally new concept that is your problem solving. You know, for example, this is going to be a trippy one. You're coming out with a product that if somebody's consuming something that you've designed a product that actually, if they have adverse effects, that's going to cure those effects. So is there enough demand, and how do you get that product to the market to be able to make it economically viable? Do you have enough money to make it economically viable? For example, if we were to go create an energy drink, it's interesting. So I've seen several energy drink startups, and they've come in with great equity, and of course we're going to match it with financing. And one of the things is they have an amazing drink. It does exactly what it's supposed to. There's obviously a demand for that product. But here's the big thing. How do you reach that audience? So
right.
it's $100 million to brand a new soda. It's crazy amount of money,
Mm.
and you're like, well,
Wow.
why is that so much? Well, there's just so much competitive. If you want your product on that shelf, you're going to have to buy that
It's true.
space, right? Okay. And you're going to have to market it. And you're going to have to reach your audience to let them know the competitive edge and why your product is better than everybody else, or why it's unique in that way to define itself to be attractive or compelling for me to go in the store and go grab that product off the shelf. So it's like that with everything, widget in, widget out. And in startups, I mean, look, we're a country of startups and dreamers, and who is it? I think we're still number one in the world at doing that. So
Mhm.
it's it's a wonderful time, and we love getting products that way, but that's
That's
no different than anything.
right. Well, one of our advisors, Darnell Collins, is actually on our executive team. He is, I mean, this guy's a legend in the branding. Worked with Hugo Boss, Giorgio Armani. Can't
Oh
remember all
wow.
the initials of his background, but he actually has a manufacturing facility in Pakistan, along with other manufacturing relationships. So to our viewers, to the point of we have resources, as I said earlier. If you have a dream, if you have an idea,
Yeah.
we have the resources to actually create it. And as Jim was just saying, there's rigor that goes in determining the financing of it, but all of that, as I would say, is the academic beginnings to verify if we have a market viable product, knowing that you can spec everything, price out everything. I mean, you've got to invest some money even to do your preliminary workups. But again, I tell anybody, if somebody's going to finance it, your odds are significant, especially on the debt side, that this is going to be a success because debt is far more conservative than equity. Now, a lot of people I've come across have had people just pour money into something and they call it the burn rate. It burns, burn, baby, burn, you know.
Mm.
Nothing much ever happens with it. But on the debt capitalization side, after the end of the game, you own more of your business, and it's more likely if it launches, it's going to be a success. So these processes that we bring you through, again, bring us a dream, bring us the idea, you know, and we'll wrap that with all the resources and the capital to help take it to the marketplace. Now, I do want to bring up another topic. Now, Lisa and I were working on a deal. There was a gentleman. Now let's talk about contracts for a minute. We got about 2 minutes left. He had actually gotten, and in Saudi Arabia, they're planning to build. They're planning to spend $1 trillion to build something. It was more than a trillion, however many trillion, to compete with Dubai. And there's a U.S. Construction company had gotten $1 billion piece of that pie, and he had to come to the table with his, I guess his front money, so to speak. And so Lisa and I were working to help to facilitate showing that he had the capital to be able to, you know, bring in all his subs and all that. There's $1 billion opportunity, and it's still in the works. One of our partners, Renzi Richardson, with the BHFL Group, brought that to the Private Money Syndicate to work with this gentleman, and our relationship with Jim and Lisa is part of that underwriting and development. And there was a lot of stuff he needed to get together so that we could move forward with that. So we'll see where it goes. But you know, again, this is a guy. He had his credentials and he found an opportunity. And let's say that, and Jim said something before we came on the air, between A to C, you know, we got to take care of the B part. So Jim, just if you can think of some other examples where there have been people who had contractual relationships that they needed the capital to be able to go into the production process or into the construction process, and you know, our facilitation is able to bring through what they needed on the capital side.
Wow, I mean you're absolutely hitting a nail on the head there, because from manufacturing, I'll give you a quick one. You could be in a leased building and you get a contract, whether it be with another company that wants to buy your product, but you're like, that's great, but I don't have the money to fulfill that contract without having the raw materials to build my widget to sell that product. So that's where, you know, you all come in, and we can finance that gap, get you from point A to point B, because we'll factor, which is we'll leverage that contract that you have, okay, to lend you the money, so to speak. We'll set up a lot of time. Now, it depends on the strength of the contract, obviously, but at the end of the day, that contract is something that is a financiable option for you. So don't think of terms of I've got to have real estate to get loans. No, that contract is actually money that we can collateralize and lend it to you on. And the same thing for housing and a development. For example, I'm going to use Park City, Utah. You know, there's a transaction that the resorts there need all these employees, but I mean, the average price home is $1.4 million. So they're obviously, people can't, that they're going to work on these ski resorts, or they don't have the ability to do that. So somebody was building housing there, and they went to the resorts, and they got letters from the resorts basically saying, we will guarantee we will occupy X amount of that housing. Well, again, that's a contract. Okay. And that contract that they got with the resorts guaranteeing the occupancy of that apartment building they're going to build, okay, allowed us to come in and be really aggressive on the loan to value. And loan to value is, we say 50%. That means someone's putting 50% on, and then we're financing 50%. Well, allowed us to do 95% financing from the private sector, not HUD, but from the private sector, because of the strength of those agreements or contracts with those ski resorts. And so I hope that I'm answering that correctly, but it's,
Yeah.
if people don't, they get stuck in, oh, it's got to be this or that, but it really isn't. It's any type of security document that is a promise to pay or a promise to buy is something that we can finance at the end of the day.
That is fantastic. Well, I saw the maestro looking at the screen. Do we have any questions? We got about 5 minutes or less, or any other shout outs before we get ready to go on, since Jim's a pilot, to go final and ready for landing here.
Yeah, it was interesting because you brought up Darnell Collins and he came into the chat when you were speaking about that, and it says it's Darnell here. If there is an opportunity to provide a platform or of wardrobe supply for your features or episodic series, my customizable garment production is open for discussion. And also he says yes to reverse engineer a concept to make a better mousetrap per that project. And he says yes to deliver a solution to an evident pain point, talking about startups and finding innovation basically. So yeah.
Awesome,
Mhm.
awesome. Hey, thanks, Darnell. We're proud of all the things that you're able to do, and Jim, remember that we can have some product placement in some of your movies and things.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, but that's a big thing right now.
Right,
That's what's
right.
really changing. I was seeing this technology to where literally you've got your movie going, and then on the side, you can literally go click on what that person's wearing in that movie, and you can buy it right there.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's coming in the future. So if you see like a cool pair of sneakers, or it's scary to think about, the other half, what they would do with that. But the thing is that you could be able to buy whatever is on the screen or whatever that actor or actress is wearing, and or say they're on one of those little things that you're riding around on, a scooter, or I'm trying to think of the things that have the wheels that roll around. You can literally buy that because they'll have a menu on the side. You
Oh,
just
the
click on it.
segways, the
Yeah,
segways.
segways. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you can literally buy it, and where the technology's there, it's very close to going mainstream, and it's really cool. So talk about product placement. There, a lot of the movie stuff that I'm seeing is actually designed around subject matters and topics to launch a new product or brand.
Man, that is amazing. Well,
Yeah.
Jim, I guess we're down to the last minute or so. If there's anything else you want to say about our relationship or anything, take a minute and we'll give you the mic to do so as we get ready to close out for today.
No, it's just a pleasure. We love working with you. What you do for your clients is bar, it's the best, and you take care of them, and that translates to us. You make our job incredibly easy because when we get something from you, we know it's complete. We know that you've helped the people get from point A to point B, and when we read a complete plan and we see how complete it is, it's just easy for us to be able to step in and make a very decisive decision, and we're just grateful for it. So thank you. And thank you again for having me on your show. It's been a pleasure.
Well,
Awesome.
Jim, we have Jim R, who's with us from an undisclosed location.
I just have a shirt on. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, right.
Well, I love working with you and Lisa, and I'm so sorry Lisa couldn't be here, but I'm glad that I got because of that. And we look forward to our viewers joining in with us to help to power dreams and to bring some of those ideas to you guys. And so thank you so much for the time, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. So when we close out, don't hang up. We want to do a little after action discussion with you. But hey, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. So I do want to ask you again, please like, follow, and share the Mind Your Business show, the show that helps you to grow, and go over to YouTube to the Private Money Godfather channel and subscribe, because in addition to the shows in the future, we're going to have a lot of great things coming out as we launch in September our 10,000 Dreams Challenge campaign. So you don't want to miss out. And also, you don't want your friends and family to miss out. Please have them to go subscribe at the Private Money Godfather channel on YouTube. We had an awesome guest, Jim R, here, one of our capital partners, talking about the big deal stuff. And so again, don't dream small, dream big, and we got the capital support. And if you ever need to get your technology right, if you ever need to build a data center, hey, we got the maestro here, Silver Lining Consultant, who can help you with all of that good stuff. And so I want to say goodbye for now. And so as I say every week, if you're going to go in business and stay in business, you've got to mind your business. And with that, maestro, you can take us on home.
All right. And as always, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tony. And thank you all for joining us. And thanks for your support. Definitely make sure you tell a friend because no dream is too big and we want to power them all. All right. And y'all take care and we'll see you on the next one.